Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're not just talking about small tweaks to how we teach. We're looking at, well, a total system replacement.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
We're tearing into your sources on what's called disruptive curriculum design, or DCD. And the idea here is to fundamentally challenge everything.
Everything, the whole structure.
The subjects, the bell schedules, standardized tests, all of it.
Exactly. When we say disruptive, we really mean it. This isn't just about, improving the existing system.
Right, it's not about using a tablet instead of textbook.
No, that's what the sources call sustaining innovation. It's making the current factory model run a bit faster, a bit more efficiently.
But DCD doesn't want a faster factory.
It wants to tear the factory down and build something completely new in its place. It changes the bedrock, the underlying logic of how learning is even organized.
And to help us wrap our heads around this, the sources give us this great central metaphor. They describe traditional curriculum as arborescent.
Arborescent, like a tree.
Exactly, like a tree. You have this single, thick trunk. You have the main branches, which are, math, history, science. It's all very fixed, very hierarchical.
And it only grows in one direction. Up. Towards a predictable endpoint, the canopy.
But the disruptive model is the complete opposite. It's rhizomatic.
Which is more like a root system. Think of ginger or a patch of grass.
Okay, so no central trunk.
No center at all. It grows sideways, it connects in unpredictable ways, it sends out new shoots wherever it finds nutrients, or in our case, wherever the learner has a need.
So that's the core shift we're diving into. It's moving from what content is taught to how is knowledge experienced and applied, from the factory to the ecosystem.
And if we dig into the specifics from your sources, you see how deep that change goes. The traditional driver is always content and standards.
You have to cover Chapter 7 by Friday.
Right. But the disruptive driver isn't the content. It's a real-world problem or a phenomenon or a competency you need to build. The content is secondary.
It serves the problem, not the other way around.
Exactly. And that forces the structure to change. You can't be linear anymore. You have to be modular, networked.
Because a real problem isn't going to wait for you to finish the entire history textbook before it lets you use some physics.
Of course not. And that has a huge impact on pacing for the student.
Right. The traditional model is fixed pacing. Everyone moves together.
But here, pacing becomes flexible. It's mastery-based. The clock doesn't matter.
You move on when you can prove you can do the thing, period.
Which changes the ultimate goal. You're shifting from simple knowledge acquisition, just memorizing things, to actual knowledge creation and application.
Okay, but I see a friction point there immediately. If pacing is totally flexible, how does an institution even function? How does a principal manage a school where some ninth graders are on 8th grade math and others are doing college-level work?
And that is the central challenge. The sources argue that you solve it in the design itself. If you build the whole system around competency from the ground up, those old scheduling problems, they start to melt away.
So let's get into those designs. What are the big models in practice?
Well, let's start with the one that's probably gotten the most traction, which is competency-based education, or CBE.
Okay, CBE. The core idea there seems to be that learning is the constant and time is the variable.
That's it perfectly. You only move on when you can prove rigorously that you've mastered the skill. And the big disruption is that it completely severs the link between learning and the calendar.
And it also gets rid of the F grade, which is what always makes headlines.
Right. Your status is either competent or not yet competent.
But that has to create pushback, right? From parents, from colleges that want a simple GPA.
Yeah.
How do you maintain rigor if you can't fail?
Well, the argument is that the rigor actually increases. Not yet competent isn't a failure, it's a diagnosis. It tells you exactly what you need to work on.
So it's specific feedback.
Very specific. And F just says you failed. Not yet competent says here are the gaps, now go fix them and try again. The burden of proof is actually higher.
So as a designer, you're not just writing a syllabus. You're building what the sources call a map of mastery.
A very detailed map. Charting out every single milestone. It's a much more complex job.
Okay, so that's CBE. What's the second framework?
The second one is challenge-based learning, or CBL. Here, you organize everything around solving one big, messy, real-world problem.
And your sources trace this back to some of Apple's educational research, right? The ACOT2 project.
Yeah, Apple Classrooms of Tomorrow, Phase 2. The focus there was on how you use technology to foster higher-level thinking, not just, digital worksheets.
And CBL grew out of that.
It did. The core idea is that the best way to learn is to face a problem so complex you don't know the answer ahead of time. And this is key. The curriculum becomes emergent.
Emergent, so it's not pre-planned.
Not at all. The content you learn, whether it's chemistry or civics or data analysis, depends entirely on the path you take to solve the challenge. The learning gets pulled in by the students out of necessity.
So let's walk through that cycle. The sources say it starts with the engage phase.
Right, you start with a huge, big idea, something like water or transportation.
And you narrow that down to an essential question.
Yes, something specific and actionable. Not what is transportation, but how can our community redesign its bus routes to better serve evening workers while staying budget neutral?
Okay, that question immediately creates the next step, which is investigate.
Because now the students have to figure out what they need to know. They need sociology, urban planning, budget analysis, maybe even some engineering. They have to go find that knowledge.
And the final step is act.
And this is crucial. They don't just write a report. They build something. They design an actual bus schedule and present it to the city council. The learning is judged by the real-world result.
Okay, so if CBE and CBL are already radical, the third model, rhizomatic learning, sounds like it's on another planet.
It's definitely the most radical form, yeah.
Yeah.
The guiding principle is incredibly simple and also incredibly challenging.
Which is?
The community is the curriculum.
That sounds like chaos. How do you ensure any kind of accountability or basic learning if there's no pre-planned content at all?
Well, the argument is that accountability comes from the network itself, from the group, from your peers. The disruption is total. There's no syllabus. There's no reading list.
So what is there?
There's a conversation. The curriculum gets built in real time by the people in the group based on what they're interested in, what they need, what they're arguing about.
So if I'm the instructor,
Mm-hmm.
what is my job? I can't be delivering content.
You're not. Your job is to be an architect. You design the environment, you create the space, provide the tools, and you set up the nodes of connection. You connect people and ideas so that knowledge can emerge.
Yeah.
You tend the garden. You don't dictate what grows.
This all points to a massive shift in how you even think about design. It basically throws out the old models.
It really does. I mean, most designers are taught something like AD.E, analysis, design, development. It's all very linear, very planned.
Or backward design. Start with the learning outcome you want at the end.
Right. What will the student know? But the critique here is that if you already know the outcome before you start, you've killed any chance for genuine discovery. You've limited the creative possibilities.
Those are the alternative.
The sources call it blueprint design. Instead of focusing on the outcome, you focus on designing a really robust blueprint of the experience. You build rich collaborative environments and amazing support systems.
And the philosophy is, if the environment is good enough, deep learning will just happen.
It will emerge in ways you can't predict, but in ways that are deeply relevant to each learner. You're designing for emergence, not for control.
Okay, so let's make this super practical. The sources lay out a 4-step process for this kind of design. What's step 1?
Step 1, identify the phenomenon or anchor. You do not start with a topic. You start with a compelling, complex, real-world event.
Okay, like what?
Let's use that example from earlier. Why did this brand new bridge in our city collapse after only 2 years? That's your anchor.
That immediately grabs you. Okay, so then step 2.
Map the nodes. A bridge collapse isn't just a physics problem. It's a node connecting materials, science, public funding, political ethics, engineering history, government regulation. You map all those intersections.
And step 3 is define the do. What does the learner actually have to produce? And I'm guessing it's not a multiple choice test.
Not even close. The do has to be a complex creation. Maybe they have to design and present a new costed policy for infrastructure inspection, or maybe they build a scale model that demonstrates the failure point and proposes a solution. It has to be something they make.
Then step 4, and this feels like the heart of it, build the scaffold, not the road. Unpack that for me. You're not laying out a clear path for them.
You're not. You're building the support systems they'll need when they get stuck. The road is what they build themselves through their investigation. The scaffold is the resource library, the list of experts they can call, the simulation software, the data sets.
So you're creating the system that allows them to pull the knowledge they need exactly when they realize they need it.
Precisely. You don't push 6 weeks of material science on them just in case. They pull it the moment their model won't hold its own weight, and they need to understand why. It's learning on demand.
When you put it all together, CBE, CBL, this rhizomatic idea, it seems like the one thing they all do is They decentralize authority.
That is the ultimate outcome.
Yes.
The teacher is no longer the sole source of truth. The textbook isn't the Bible.
The knowledge is distributed. It's in the community. It's in the environment. It's in the problems themselves.
The curriculum stops being a static document and becomes a living thing that adapts to the learner. And that, right there, is why it's so powerful and also why it's so incredibly difficult for traditional institutions to adopt.
Which brings us to a final provocative thought for you to take away from this.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about shifting from that rigid, arborescent, tree-like system to a flexible, rhizomatic ecosystem in formal education. But just think about your own professional life for a minute. How much of the learning you're required to do, compliance training, onboarding, new software rollouts, is still stuck in that fixed trunk model?
Where you click through a linear module that you may or may not ever actually need to apply?
Exactly. So here's the challenge. If you were to build just one small rhizomatic node in your own work right now, a little space where learning is emergent and based on solving a real problem, what would you anchor it to?
What complex challenge at your job could be the starting point? The goal isn't to write a lesson plan. It's to start designing the environment.
Focus on the do and let the knowledge follow.
That's it.
Thanks for joining the deep dive. We'll catch you next time.